Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on the Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is waking up. Have you ever had the experience of being in a really familiar place that like super familiar, even someplace in your own home, and all of a sudden noticing something that you never noticed before? What is it that happens that we just wake up to nuances in our world that we just never noticed before? So it should be a fun conversation. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to be here with you this morning. Um, and everybody else that's joining us, welcome. Before we get started talking about waking up on all kinds of levels, let's just take a couple minutes to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So good to be here. So I love rubbing my hands together in the morning. It just warms up my fingers, which are typically very cold. So I hope that you find that enjoyable. I do as a ritual and to warm up my hands, and also as a sort of grounding exercise. Anyway, waking up. So just noticing things that you hadn't noticed. I guess the thing to talk about before we talk about waking up is to talk about kind of being in a haze, or maybe falling asleep, or just becoming kind of oblivious to our world and our surroundings. When something is familiar, we stop paying attention oftentimes. And we just don't really aren't really present to what is going on all the time. And in some ways, that lack of presence and that filtering out of information, in some ways, that can be a self-preservation mechanism, because otherwise we might get completely overwhelmed with all the input around us. But what is it, I wonder, that causes us to wake up, to notice something that we hadn't noticed before? Like, what is it that prompts that? And if we recognize it in one place, is that waking up something that then translates to other dimensions as well, or other situations? Um, like, I guess what I'm wondering is it a foundational shift of being that allows us to perceive things more, or perceive more, to experience more, to recognize more? I think it's an interesting question. Um, an example might be we have an area of clutter or something, congestion in our space. And it's been there, it's been building for who knows how long, but kind of with a life of its own, without a conscious awareness of it, without it being an adjutant. Okay, so um, and then all of a sudden you notice it, and all of a sudden you experience that congestion. So this is it's interesting because my I recognize I say it's interesting a lot because I'm very curious, and I find things quite interesting when we notice these things. Anyway, around my desk, I've had lots of stuff that's available to me in case I need it. And the thing is that most of the time I don't need it, but it's sitting there just in case. And just the other day, I had a different perspective on my room, my office, because I put a rebounder in my office, and so that on my breaks I can bounce around and get a little bit of exercise. So I was above my normal vantage point in the room. And from that place of above, I was able to see this whole space and see these areas of congestion in ways that I had never, that it impacted me in a way that I never saw it before. And so without trying to discipline myself or anything, I found myself just sort of neatening things up, cleaning things up, getting rid of things, organizing things, moving toward that. It's not done, but I noticed that just the experience of the congestion, feeling that, having seen it from literally a different perspective, and then having the experience of that congestion moved me into action that was not even really premeditated. I wonder if you have an experience like that, and what is occurring to me as a result of this conversation is that a literal shift of perspective can transform your perception. It does, of course, because the perception is different. But maybe that's a tool that we can use in a deliberate way to wake ourselves up, to create a new perspective on something that then might spur us into an action that's aligned with the new awareness, the new perception. So have you ever had that experience where you've been in a space, it's very familiar, and then all of a sudden you see something that's been there all along? It's been there all along, but all of a sudden it registers, like there's a recognition about it. I'm finding that this is the case not only with physical surroundings, but with ourselves, that we can have a sudden insight into ourselves that was there all the information was there all along, but the dots somehow just didn't connect. What is it that makes the dots connect when all of a sudden we can recognize a pattern that we have that we never saw before? It's been there all along. It might be something that we've contended with and even wrestled with and possibly struggled with, but all of a sudden it's clear as a bell. So Rosalind says, looking in the mirror and sometimes seeing self as unrecognizable. Oh my gosh, yes. I love that you said that. That's so true. It's like looking in the mirror, who the heck is that? And feeling this incredible lack of recognition. It's remarkable. It's really, really remarkable when that happens. I'm so glad that you said that, because I've had occasions where that's been the case. And it's rather jarring. It's a jarring experience to look in the mirror and just say, who is that? Who is that? And it makes you wonder, who is it that's asking, who is that? You know, very, very, very interesting. These shifts of awareness and consciousness that that impact our experience on a very fundamental level. We are such odd creatures, aren't we? Um, so even I've noticed this sometimes when I've gone outside my house. There's a tree that's been there as long as I've been here, which is a long time in this location. And I realize that I've been seeing it without seeing it. And periodically it reappears in my awareness. You know, the just the magnificence of this tree. It's a Japanese maple, and it it turned brilliant, brilliant red uh, this fall, and then it rained, and there was a huge drop of the leaves. So the there's a black top driveway here, and then there's the green grass, and there were these brilliant red leaves all over the blacktop and all over the grass, and still some on the tree, and the branches of the tree were darkened by the wet of the rain. And it was just this explosion of color and contrast and magnificence that made me speechless. And this is a tree that I see every day for years and years. And I looked at the branches and I realized that they were the configuration of the branches was completely unfamiliar to me, which was fascinating. That I I didn't have a knowing after all this time, that I didn't have a knowing that was more intimate of this tree. And so it was a moment of waking up. And then I don't know about you, but I see myself falling back into the same kind of stupor, or the same kind of inattention to my environment, even within my apartment, where I've decorated it with all kinds of beautiful things. And so often I don't even see those beautiful things. I mean, they don't register. It's not that I don't see them, it's that they don't register, that they don't resound within me. I don't allow myself the connection to those things. I don't allow myself to be fully present to their what they look like, what they feel like, to the connection with them. And I wonder how often we do this with people, where we kind of go on automatic pilot. We take people for granted. We take ourselves for granted. We take, and what does it mean to take for granted? I think it means to be kind of automatic about our relationship with things, that we dispense with things rather than really being present to them, really engaging with them. And we do that with other people as well, or pets. I was watching I I was watching a video of a cockatoo. No, cockatoo. I it wasn't a I don't know. It was this white bird with a big crest that has so much personality, and it uh it's I guess its person, it was sitting on its person's shoulder, and its person was on their phone, and the bird was having a fit that the person was ignoring it because they were on the phone, and was just hollering at this person and making all kinds of emphatic gestures. And I thought it was very, very funny. I was laughing out loud seeing this thing, uh, because here we are. Here's this being on our shoulder that is clamoring for attention, and this guy is just really absorbed in his phone, essentially ignoring or being oblivious to this bird that is saying, "Hey, bud, I'm your buddy, like, let's be with me, would you?" And how often do we sit with other people and we're all engaged in our phone and we're missing the opportunity to connect and relate? And we're just oblivious. We're just not present. And how much of life do we filter out from one moment to the next? I know I've said this before, but there's a book by Aldous Huxley called The Doors of Perception. And I read it when I was a teenager, and it was about experiments with mescaline. I believe it was mescaline. And opening the doors of perception. And what he postulated or hypothesized, I don't know which way, was that rather than the mind being something that is perceiving everything, that it's something that limits our perception, that it's filtering out our perception. And every now and then we have moments when those filters open, sometimes through medicine assists, or medicinal assists, sacred medicine or otherwise. Sometimes we just have moments of waking where we perceive more, which reminds me again of the Netflix movie that I watched again and so enjoyed. And it's called I think it's called the Story of Henry Sugar, or the something. Henry Sugar is the name. So if you look up Henry Sugar, you'll be able to find it on Netflix. But it's about expanded perception, the ability to see without one's eyes, and also in the film, levitating, accessing other dimensions of perception and experience. And there is a movie, and I've shared this with you before, called Superhuman: Making the Invisible Visible. I think you can find it on YouTube. And there's video of children wearing blackout blindfolds playing sports. reading stories. We talk about perception, opening our perception, waking up to our capabilities. So Rosalind says, as the holidays approach, visiting friends and family you see less frequent, seeing them as older, around the eyes. Yeah, different perceptions, right? I actually, that's such an interesting thing that you're bringing up, because I notice when I see people that I haven't seen for a while, I'll often see the effects of age initially and be somewhat shocked, not just around the eyes and not just with them. I see it with myself periodically too. But after being with them, my perception of them is transformed. I wonder if you have that experience as well, where the age sort of fades and they become more revivified in a way. I have one particular friend where I've witnessed that in spending time together, where initially the experience is one of, wow, time's gone by here, and then the youthfulness seems to return, not to the earliest days certainly, but um, they look different as I spend time with them. I wonder what that phenomena is. And maybe, are they actually looking more youthful, or are we projecting? Um, and how does the rest of the world perceive? Like, it's always been a question for me as to whether there is any kind of objective reality, and if so, is there any way that we could potentially access that? So I'm endlessly fascinated by life and our perception and our cognition and our interpretations and the power of our minds to create the miraculous. Waking up to our capabilities. Years and years ago, I had the gift from my grandmother of going to, with her, a training. At the time it was called the Silva Mind Control Method. And I think now the Shift Network is making the Silva trainings available. But it was way before the channeling craze, although the Seth materials might have been out at that time. But it was tuning in to other dimensions of awareness and being able to create things. It was also before the whole law of attraction stuff. It was being able to create from this other dimension of consciousness, and bringing those intentions and manifestations into the physical. And also it was being present to being able to connect. So for example, for the final test, or the certification or whatever, I don't know if there was a certification, but anyway, for that final test, we were given someone's name and a city where they lived, and we were to tune in to identify what was going on with that person. And I took this training twice. The second time, what happened was my limbs curled up. I felt like my limbs curled up. And I don't remember much more than that, because that was a very visceral thing. But it turned out that the person's name that I had been given was quadriplegic. And here I was able to sense into them with nothing more than a name and a city. Now, it's possible that I picked up on the knowledge of the person that had given that name. Or it was possible perhaps that I tuned into that person. And who knows, it's possible that we are all one another and that we have these different channels that we can tune into that allow us to experience the universe. In the work that I do with my clients, we do a lot of imaginal work, space in work in the imaginal space. And imaginal space is different from imagination. It's connecting with a greater consciousness, perhaps, or a greater awareness, creating it's not just pure fancy. It's maybe guided from some other dimension, or it's tapping another dimension of consciousness. Super powerful. And in these imaginal spaces that are generated by their other than conscious intelligence, there are all kinds of symbols and communications and interactions that occur that then produce transformative change within the person. And I can have somebody coming into a session devastated, crying, enraged, feeling helpless, hopeless, despair. And we go through the session and bam, they're good. And whatever the cause was for whatever the trigger was for that despair or disquietude is related to in an entirely different fashion. The fact that we can have that kind of change that quickly makes me know that reality is malleable and our experience of reality is malleable. And if it's malleable, how do we generate a world that we really want to live in? So I'm going to leave you with that question for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel, and the Core, and the Core Connection YouTube channel, and my personal Facebook page and my business Facebook page as well. So I so appreciate the opportunity to spend this time together. I'm so grateful for you and our connection. So until next time.